The Institute of Internal Auditors presents All Things Internal Audit Tech. In this episode, Bill Truett talks with Nick Lasenko about the critical role of identity and access management in today's organizations. The conversation also covers frameworks, regulatory requirements, and real-world use cases.
So, Nick, let's just start it off. Can you give me an overview of what identity and access management entails and why it's critical for organizations?
Identity and access management is paramount. It's the front line, it's the nexus. A malicious hack, data breach incident is essentially unauthorized access. So it's absolutely paramount. I could talk a little bit of the cost. I love that because we get to tie the business side with the technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's really valuable for making cost benefit decisions. A recent IBM cost of a data breach report kind of mentioned some costs and a bunch of other sources. So they vary from 1.3% to 1.9% of revenues, all the way to 25% of revenues if you look at the Verizon report specifically about ransomware. So across the industries, profit margins vary from 2% to 20%. So you can have a breach incident wipe out the entire profit
Yeah,
margin for the year.
yeah, or at least a very good percentage of it, and
Right.
that's never a good sign to show on your financials.
That's right. It also gives a way to measure the value of good identity and access management because that's an important component in our control environment. It's even more important now. Costs of breaches have increased 10% over the past year, and leading attack vectors are phishing, stolen credentials, and those are the ones with a higher cost. Email compromise, malicious insider attacks are less frequent, but also as costly. So you can see how everything ties to identity. And for incidents, security incidents, cyber attacks, on average, we're getting better at containing them, about 2 months to identify. It used to be 2.5 months. It's still a lot of time. So the more time passes, the more damage is done. So
Mhm.
again, that's critical.
That's it's good to hear that they're improving on time to identify, and then once you have identified, then they can respond and react to the breaches.
That's right. Now, some of the biggest challenges to deal with that and respond have been just if there's a malicious insider, for example, we need to distinguish between legitimate and malicious users. And if there's weak identity governance, it's very hard to dig through the environment and the data we have to get to the bottom of it to determine if it's a malicious actor or a legitimate user.
Yeah,
So that's kind of one of the challenges we have.
nice. So, kind of digging more into identity and access management, what are some of the most common risks that internal auditors should be aware of in this area?
It's weak governance, and that is the foundation for a solid cybersecurity environment,
Mhm.
control environment.
When you're talking about weak governance, would you say that would include poor password controls, poor just identity management, like IDs not tied to single people? Can you maybe give some examples of what you would consider to be weak governance?
Sure, when we have a clear path forward, it's really easy to navigate, to move forward when there's clarity of vision. Um, Good governance and identity is clear vision in terms of how is identity defined, what are the rules, what are the policies, standards. And by the time we get technical with the tools, with the processes, we're implementing with rigor, with clarity, and with risk management in mind. And of course, always keeping the business interest at heart.
Yeah. So setting kind of a strong and clear tone at the top and have everything trickle down from that.
That's right. And it's difficult to do when you have a large multinational organization because there's silos, there's different platforms, there's on-prem, there's the cloud mishmashed together, there's employees remote on kind of on site, there's non-employees that have access. And when you try to improve an existing system, it's really difficult. It takes a lot of time and analysis to go through and improve and rebuild the governance. That's kind of the core challenge, moving mountains.
Yeah, I had previously worked at a very large bank, and it was almost like it was like 12 different companies, each with their kind of own silo and ways of wanting to do things that were just kind of loosely tied together. So, like, definitely, a strong governance position would definitely be beneficial for those situations to get some uniformity across kind of all the different lines of business.
Yep, that's right. Lots of financial institutions, big banks, healthcare enterprises have a similar scenario where they're siloed. Now I've seen multiple environments where there's just um, things are all over the place. A lot of manual effort. There's one or two people managing access for thousands of employees, and they're about to retire. So
Hmm.
it's challenging. It's challenging. That was kind of an example of some of my projects. And the key to success is, well, like you said, top down governance, tone from the top, and leadership. The leadership has interest and the will to implement the solid governance, solid identity and access management, and then that is the core to the success. Before we get to the technical, the encryption, key management,
Hmm.
authentication, authorization, groups, and all of that. That's the core.
Awesome. Kind of moving on, what frameworks or regulatory requirements should internal auditors consider when they're assessing their IAM controls?
There's a wide variety. Um, I often work with the NIST frameworks. There's a variety of those. They map to ISO. Those are great. The G tag is great. The latest update, I love the fact that it includes a mention of NIST CSF 2.0. There's a really good control list, a control objective list in NIST 800 53 R5 is the latest. It's highly detailed, but it's really good guidance of what we should aim for. There's high, medium, low impact. It's the number of controls you have, the significance of the systems, but those are great, especially within the access control family and then identification family, those kind of groups, IAC, IAPE families. NIST 863 is great for fundamentals, identity fundamentals. Those are important to know, to understand what we're looking for, kind of what our group's life cycles, identities, what we're trying to achieve. It's a great starting point. NIST CSF 2.0, the update is awesome, I think, especially given the recent usage of generative AI. There's one interesting thing that they added is it's both governance. There's a whole separate control group on governance, and there's data governance. Data governance is a big deal, especially now, because you need to have a clear view of what data you have. Data catalog, standards, policies, defining kind of both categorization of data, and classification of data. Then you've kind of determined how you manage it. The reason being is that when you have good data governance, you can apply identity and access management, identity governance to it. HIPS 199 is great because it gives you a way of rating systems and based on the data, the risk that they have. If you combine those together, identity and access management essentially is having the right kind of access to the right data at the right time for the right individuals or systems. That's a key to success. And that's also important for implementing strong DLP, data loss prevention, and in turn, with good governance, with good controls, with good vision, AI tools.
Can you share any real world use cases where strong IAM controls have helped prevent security incidents or improved operational efficiencies?
Got a couple of win examples from different kind of viewpoints. There's a scenario where I had hundreds of thousands of backlog events, security events around the access management. And it was four database platforms, for more, numerous access lists, 3 to 5 ticketing systems, over 4 server platforms. So thousands of servers, thousands of users, like 70,000 or more employees. Introduced documentation of the governance, what was done, and then documented and standardized, developed solid. This is how we do things, and then boiled up to the policy level, standardized alerts, consolidated the kind of into a single CMDB, cleared the backlog, and then that enabled us. And then several examples where instead of weeks, it took us days to identify incidents and then escalate to the CSERT team for investigation, and we quickly imaged laptops that were affected. So that's a few success stories right there.
Yeah, I know that those systems can generate incredible volumes of logs, but none of that information is valuable until you've had a chance to analyze it and filter out the ones
That's right.
that aren't important, and then identify the ones that you need to have action on now.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep.
it's great.
Got a
We
correlated. Mhm.
yeah, I know, kind of asked about success stories. Do you have any horror stories?
Oh, it's, I mean, usually when I come in, it's a giant horror story,
Yeah,
and then kind of dig through it and implement and governance
you're there to help
framework
clean up.
configurations. Yep. There was a large enterprise where this is essentially kind of it's rinse repeat because there were several of these. I sometimes do kind of broad identity and access assessments, and sometimes deep dives of the directory services, get a dump of users, groups, and all those records. I try to get as much information as possible with scripts, obviously working with the business closely. And it's one thing you have automated scripts and functions to, let's say, like disable user from opening a certain app from, or just disable them completely because they're no longer working there. And then you get an actual dump of the data and report and export from the system itself, and then you see thousands of users that haven't been disabled on time, still around, they're still being used. There's hundreds of accounts that haven't had passwords changed or don't need passwords, use old authentication methods. Um, One of the more interesting things that I see is that often as auditors, we approach assessments kind of on a risk basis, and we focus on production environments, and then we have the dev test and the lower environments. But to make it convenient, developers sometimes take shortcuts. The teams take shortcuts and they reuse passwords. And then when you scan and compare the password hashes, you see, oh, there's so many reused passwords across the non prod and the prod environments. That was a huge lesson learned for me when I first started seeing these. Don't ignore the lower environments. Don't necessarily reduce the amount of testing depending if passwords are allowed to be shared or can be shared. You have to keep that in mind.
Do you think there's good value in at least allocating a portion of your time to looking at environments other than the top level production into the okay,
Absolutely.
nice.
Absolutely. At least compare the password hashes across the environment. The environment.
And that's something that can be fairly automated. Not a lot of time in that.
A person comes in, runs a few scripts,
Scripts.
assuming they're reviewed by the technology team and approved, because not every script should be run. It should go through the proper change management process. And yeah, scripts, commands, whatnot. You need to know what you're running, validate it, test it in a small environment, then you can run it. Um, Sometimes commands are better because they're simpler. Scripts you can see. Third party tools, you have to be very comfortable with the risk and what you're leveraging. So it really depends on the tools you're using.
Awesome. So, kind of moving on to kind of the next area we want to talk about. This is something I've had a lot of experience with as a practitioner. Is kind of what are the best practices for managing user access reviews, and how often do you think they should be conducted?
This is an interesting one, and I have a couple of war stories for that one. Um, to
I have a
start,
horror story
yeah,
as well
oh,
associated
awesome,
with that. Yeah.
perfect. It's this is like one of those classic areas where you find so much interesting stuff. I had uh, the poor DBA just receive stacks and stacks of, I mean, if you print it out, they haven't printed it, exports of users and their privileges across a multinational enterprise, across different databases that this individual was supposed to send to business owners, sometimes business owners, sometimes IT owners. And it was such a volume of accounts to review and validate, and the detail of access that was listed. No human could possibly be able to do that 100% accurately and keep track of everything. So it's overwhelming. It's too much to understand, to deal with. Kind of maybe it helped to reach out to the individual owners, but it's still a lot of data. So I think it's good to take user access reviews and kind of just in bite-sized pieces. So I have this drawing, and I published it in the past year or two, of the identity management, kind of the pillars of the different RACI chart groups and the responsibilities, and you have identities, and you have business roles, IT roles, and entitlements. Goes left to right, and then you have the business side, the HR, the business side, and more technology side. As you go to the right, from left being the HR side that would validate the business roles and job descriptions, to the middle, which would be management, and they would validate the business roles and IT roles, and then to the far right, you would have the more technology people that would validate the specific technology specific entitlements, specific configurations. So each group would play a role, not one individual taking the whole user soup to nuts review of their access. That's impossible. I think that would be helpful if we chop up identity into several functions, like business roles, IT roles, and treat them all as a life cycle, then validating those would be much more reasonable. There's tools that do that, but I'm pretty tool agnostic. It depends on how you implement what the governance is. Tools that help with that. I think that's kind of the main one. Just make it feasible for employees to do that.
Yeah, I had this horror story of a user access review where all of our internal systems we were good at. We would do the user access reviews anywhere between one time a year for lower risk applications up to about 4 times a year for the higher risk. But we had this one application we didn't own, but we had a lot of the company used a lot, and we on very good terms with this other company. We're like, we don't really have a process for communicating any of this. So let's get with them and let's get a listing of all the users and let's that they have and compare it to kind of all of our current employees. And let's see, because this has never been done in like over 20 years. So we get it. The listing we get from them of active people is more than the current number of employees we have at the company. Because once again, it's never been done. And the only kind of field that we could use to tie their list between their listing of users and our listing of current employees was email address. So we bump it up and we find the ones that don't mix, that don't match, and we're like, okay, it kind of did like it was a lot. It was many thousands of people because it was a area where there was a good amount of turnover, and once again, there was more people on their system than we actually had employees in our company. So we were able to get that listing to them of like, hey, these are the people that are no longer employees here. Unbeknownst to me, who I was the one that was managing this, is that a long time ago they used to have a different email convention. So unfortunately, it was very limited, but there were about 20 or 30 people that came in the next day that had their access cut off that we had to get them back because I didn't.
That's another good way of validating access.
Yeah, that is.
Cut it off.
I know we like to threaten that a lot. This is one time where it actually kind of happened. But that was interesting. I felt terrible, but fortunately, it wasn't too bad, and everybody took it in stride.
Fair enough. Well, it's a good thing they let you know right away. I've had instances where we cut off access and we haven't heard from people, and in a few weeks we would hear from them. And sometimes it's tricky because sometimes you have fire call accounts that are just set up but not used, which technically should be disabled and tracked with PAM system and all that. But that happened, and then DR testing comes, and then they can't use it, and then you find out. Always good to test. It reminds me of a time when we were doing a scan and we scanned through users and filtered those groups, we filtered those, and then we decided to do kind of this obscure script that pulled out in Active Directory privileged entitlements, just entitlements, not mapped to any one individual, not mapped to a system. Just they turned out to be orphan entitlements that just were sitting there, not cleared up. And then, if you wanted to, you can, if you gain the right access, you can assign those to just orphans.
Yeah, it's a potential vector for someone gaining access they shouldn't have.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, orphans is a big deal. Orphan accounts, orphan users, entitlements. We had a time when there was a group owner that was everyone left, and the only kind of group owner that was left in the company was an audit. They've totally forgot about that group too, and I think that group had privileged access. So it's always good to prove the access not only of individuals but of systems, machines, entitlements, groups.
How about continuous audit authentication? Your thoughts on that and what challenges it might present for auditors?
It really depends on how it's implemented. Continuous authentication leverages the existing data, the existing user groups. Um, and I've seen clients where they have that in place. And I wouldn't stop at seeing continuous authentication in place. You know, two-factor continuous re-authenticate based on risk. I think identity and access management based on risk is excellent because it's a sliding scale depending on what data you have access to, and PAM should be a continuum of that. It's not like admin versus not admin accounts. It's a sliding scale. Um,
Okay.
so I think we should make sure that if that is in place, then make sure that it's complete, that it's enterprise wide. Because as we talked before, users have a tendency of bypassing controls for convenience. So the core systems might have that in place, but you could still have orphaned accounts. You could still have hidden local kind of accounts and groups within like network devices that are just waiting there to be exploited. So I would verify the completeness. I often see it as too good to be true, and only when I verify that it's everywhere. Then
So you definitely want to make sure it is a complete shift to this. You can't do it piecemeal
no,
because that's just ripe for vulnerabilities.
that's right. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's right.
So,
Um, I think, and we touched upon privilege access. I don't know if this is
mm,
something that we're gonna talk about. Uh,
we can go talking about that right now.
oh, perfect.
Yes.
I love PAM. I think it's a subset. It's part and parcel of
Mhm.
access management. It shouldn't be limited to admin accounts or not. I mean, how do you define it? That's what I see in
Mhm.
organizations. We don't have it defined clearly, and it's critical because is privileged access the ability to add remove users? Sure. If it's a low risk user, maybe it's higher lower risk. I don't know. Now, is privileged access the ability to view the CEO's email, the CISO's email? Maybe, and then kind of have visibility into that data. Read only access, is it privileged? It could be, right?
The ability to see unredacted social security numbers, credit card numbers. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. We have different definitions of a privileged access across different standards. I do like the fact that some of them, now I'll kind of read excerpts of definitions. So NIST mentions security relevant functions that ordinary users are not authorized to perform. So it's above ordinary, which is great. It doesn't limit it to certain, you can change, add or remove users. It's more than that. One of the vendors, SailPoint, mentions a more powerful access rates than a normal user. Great. That's risk based. That's a sliding scale. CyberArk mentions special access or abilities above and beyond that of a standard user. And then privileged access can be human users, non human apps. I added machine kind of learning, kind of bots, AI devices, scripts, etc. So, so important to see it from a risk-based access, kind of a sliding scale, and then this way we can manage it better and easy pickings for red flags for auditors. There's no privileged access management PAM or definition of privileged access. It's not sufficiently defined. If you find that, that's right there. It's a kind of glaring deficiency that we need to have clear vision, clear definition of privileged access. Uh, not This is something that's not supported by enterprise wide of the ERM program. It should be supported. ERM programs should be tied into our privileged access definition and governance, and privileged safes are scattered, not centrally managed. We're not tied to tickets. We have a privileged access kind of activity, and then we have a ticket in place, but can we validate it? It was an actual legitimate activity. That's something I still don't see service providers, privileged access tools do. Maybe one or two are starting to, but they don't have the ability to, for you to, if you're checking out a privileged account, to go into the service ticket portal and then connect that service ticket and say, I am performing this change based on that existing service ticket. I only see, I think, one, if any, of the tools that actually do that. And this was a kind of something that I saw way back when, a little bit of a war story, and it's hard to validate if the activity was legitimate if you can't even tie to a service ticket or anything like that.
Hmm. Very true. So I know we promised we were going to touch on this
Right.
subject. I think it might be
Whoop, whoop.
time. Uh, Artificial intelligence, AI. How does artificial intelligence, machine learning impact IAM? What should auditors know about AI with regards to IAM? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
All right. Um, AI is great. I mean, it's emerging, still on its way to kind of it's being improved. Is being generative AI is being improved. We're moving towards something that can reason a little better. It's still not perfect, and in a way, it started off with kind of machine learning and kind of automation, and then turned something into something akin to advanced machine learning now that can generate text. In reality, that's what it is. It kind of generates something that's more the most plausible kind of solution to the problem you're presenting to it. And it ties into data governance, zero trust, and kind of the generative AI implementations. I've seen scenarios where a generative AI, a corporate solution was implemented, and because not all data was secured and it was treated as open, employees could see, sensitive information, something like clear text passwords or personal kind of PII data and all that. So that's something.
They ended up feeding it too much information and without thinking of the consequences.
Yeah, and you could think you have it buttoned down and you have your data labeled, but somewhere someone has a little repository of unencrypted data and it picks it up. So it's important.
People find ingenious uses for little notes fields that are in
Yep.
applications,
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
little free text areas.
Unstructured data. That's
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And we have to know. And NIST has a framework that came out, the AI risk management framework, which is essentially NIST CSF for AI. It gives kind of control objectives across the kind of designing, developing, and deploying steps of an AI system. Um, so it points out all the different what we're looking for, different areas, controls, and control objectives. And for example, if you want to catch the instances of people kind of leaving the unencrypted data and then it gets picked up and have controls in place, it mentions one of the controls is making sure you monitor the outputs to so it doesn't disclose any PI or any sensitive data. That's a great framework that us auditors can use. I would say nothing highlights areas needing support, as in budget allocation, like audit. Nothing except for maybe a data breach, but then it's too late. So IT, audit, and business, we should work together proactively to build trust and take this opportunity to shape a more resilient organization.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate your time, and hope to hear from you guys again soon.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Are you concerned about security in the age of AI? Join the IIA's 2025 Analytics, Automation, and AI Virtual Conference on April 24th. You can hear from industry experts how cutting-edge technology is transforming internal audit by securing your spot and registering today at theiaa.org. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and rate us. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also catch other episodes on YouTube or at theiaa.org. That's THEIIA.org.